NS 홈쇼핑 앱을 열면 신선하게, 쉽게, 빠르게 앱 할수록 건강해집니다. NS 모바일.
Hi, my name is Parscal Robin, General Manager at Sanofi Pasteur, Korea. And today I'd like to introduce you to Helping Hands, Sanofi Pasteur Korea's signature multi-year CSR program. But first, for those of you who are not familiar with our work, I'd like to begin with briefly introducing the company. Sanofi is a multinational pharmaceutical company present in more than 170 countries worldwide. We have more than 100,000 employees, representing more than 145 nationalities. Sanofi Pasteur is the vaccines division of Sanofi, with more than 15,000 employees, of which 60% are dedicated to manufacturing and quality operations. At Sanofi Pasteur, we believe in a world where no one suffers or dies from a vaccine-preventable disease. As a public healthcare partner, we have a diverse portfolio of high-quality vaccines for children, adolescents, and adults, including for influenza, meningitis, travel, and endemic diseases. We are a world leader in influenza and pediatrics vaccines, and the first supplier of the injectable polio vaccine. At Sanofi, we believe in fulfilling our role as a responsible corporate citizen, and we've defined three main areas of concentration. First, we aim to extend access to healthcare for the underserved. Second, we aim to support our communities, including the community of our employees. And last but not least, we are dedicated to the preservation of a healthy planet by ensuring environmental concerns are part of our decision making. And at the core of all of this is our commitment to ethics and transparency, which underscores all of our daily operation across all divisions. Today, I will introducing you to Helping Hands, a CSR program that strives to give access to health care to the underserved. The underserved group, in the case of Helping Hands, is our homeless population. The impact and cost of homelessness are well documented. Increased risk of physical and mental health problems. Increased risk of antisocial behavior, increased need for medical treatment, and increased chronic unemployment. Indeed, in terms of common preventable diseases, the homeless risk of respiratory disease at the time of the study was 7 times greater than the average citizen. And beyond the individual implication, homelessness has real implication for our communities, fiscal and otherwise. In addition to these impacts and costs, there are some cultural idiosyncrasies accompanying the issue of homelessness in Korea. Although most modern societies recognize homelessness to be the result of structural forces, systemic failures, and individual circumstances, homelessness in Korea is generally perceived to be an abandonment by the individual of society. And as such, the responsibility lies with the individual, not the society. This responsibility on the homeless creates a tragic cycle in which the Korean homeless entails feel abandoned, isolated, and forgotten by society. We can think of this tragic cycle as an abandoned gap, with society feeling abandoned by the individual and vice versa. To be homeless in Korea also means belong to society's most undesirable group. Because of underlying societal prejudices, social workers and NGOs commonly refer to the homeless as most shunned group. Most Korean companies have either refrained from CSR activities involving the homeless and refrained from publicly disclosing their CSR activities for the homeless, for fear of tarnishing their brand image. Of course, homelessness is an issue that isn't going away anytime soon, but ideally, this is how we would need to address it. In general, we need to prevent homelessness before it starts by addressing structural systemic failures. To the greatest extent possible, bring homeless people back into the folds of society. And help those who cannot re-enter society to maintain their dignity and ensure some level of basic human rights. And in Korea, we need to develop within the general public and its elected officials a clearer understanding of homelessness and bridge the abundant gap between the public and the homeless. At Sanofi Pasteur, we were realistic about the fact that we weren't going to single-handedly solve this issue of homelessness. But nonetheless, we wanted to do our part. So we started with two simple objectives. First, we wanted to vaccinate the homeless. We are, after all, a vaccine company that is committed to helping the underserved. And two, we wanted it to be a group effort. That was how, 10 years ago, our Helping Hands platform was born. These two very simple objectives. 9 years later, Sanofi Pasteur Korea, through Helping Hands, has provided some 42,100 flu vaccines shots to the homeless living in Seoul, Gyeonggi, Incheon, and Busan regions. We've built an impressive network of partners on the Helping Hands platform. We've educated welfare personnel to the importance of preventative medicine. We've raised public awareness of homeless issues. We've witnessed meaningful legislation change. We've engaged citizens. And we've helped to bridge the abundant gap. The program took on a life on its own and grew in ways we never imagined. And today, it is used as a case study in collective impact. To give you an idea on what I'm talking about, this is a network of partners we've been through Helping Hands. From the metropolitan governments to major medical centers to organizations dedicated to helping the homeless, everyone have chipped in a collective effort to improve the health and welfare of the homeless. In terms of citizen engaged too, we made Helping Hands our signature CSR program at Sanofi Pasteur Korea. And employee participation has never been mandatory, but internally we continue to actively encourage employees to volunteer their time and efforts. And over the last 9 years, 270 employees have volunteered some 1,350 hours. We've also done much with the potential to change perceptions to the homeless among the general public. Of course, we can't know the ultimate effects of this exposure generated, but it's safe to say that we've been successful at elevating the issue in the public mind. Over the life of the program, it has resulted in 1,400 news reports through the media, on TV, in print and online. The estimated number of views reached around 1.3 billion. So, as you can see, a program that started with two very simple objectives eventually took on a life on its own. And one day, we realized that Helping Hands was looking at almost a decade of organic growth. We had no doubt that it was a success, but beyond total number of vaccines and total number of views, we had little to quantify the overall sustainability of the program. In 2018, we conducted an impact study in an attempt to measure the success of the last 8 years and to provide a baseline for measuring success going forward. As part of the impact study, after a review of the existing literature, we surveyed 669 homeless participants to gain an understanding of initial awareness and the effectiveness of the vaccination in terms of impact of physical and mental health. In an attempt to establish a baseline for future impact studies, we wanted to measure awareness levels of the flu among homeless population. As you can see from this slide and the next, the results were mixed. Some misunderstandings about the nature of the flu were rather prevalent. So too in terms of the risk of the flu. For example, although there was a good understanding that the flu is more dangerous for those with chronic illness, many consider the flu to be akin to a bad cold. Again, this part of the study is to establish a baseline. But our takeaway from this was that despite the success of the program, there is still much work to be done in terms of the education of participants. Next, we looked at why they came to be vaccinated, their motivations. 76% of respondents said that they were vaccinated to prevent flu, which is encouraging in that 3 out of 4 participants were vaccinated as a preventive measure, that they were knowingly and actively taking part in preventative medicine. So that was awareness, and here we move on the actual impact of Helping Hands. Based on the number provided by the Seoul Metropolitan Government, we provided flu shots to an annual average of more than 89% of homeless individuals living in Seoul. In terms of impact on physical and mental health, the results were very encouraging, with 77% of respondents reporting that they felt their health had improved because of the vaccination, and 76.6% reporting that their quality of life in the homeless community had improved. Next are some results that we feel particularly proud of. We looked at how Helping Hands impacted the homeless individuals' perception of wider society. Or, in other words, we wanted to know how we had done in terms of helping to bridge the abandoned gap. A significant majority of respondents reported an improved trust in the community. They also responded positively to the volunteers and their efforts. And importantly, they felt a certain reciprocity. That is, they felt that the volunteers, the citizens, had become more interested in the homeless and their issues as a result of the interaction between them. This slide reflects more of the same. Our respondents felt there was an increase in the public's awareness of the group's human rights and the need for a social safety net to address homelessness. The homeless reported that their interest in other people had increased as a result. And they also felt that Helping Hands had had an impact on changes in the laws and systems that affect most of them. Needless to say, they were all very encouraging findings in light of the idiosyncrasies of the homeless issue in Korea. Partly in an effort to measure the effectiveness of our program over the years, we also asked our stakeholders to evaluate Helping Hands. We wanted to identify where we did well and where there was some room for improvement. We conducted a survey of 150 stakeholders and held focus group interviews with 10 of them. The respondents were comprised as shown here. Partners organization refers to homeless shelters, soup kitchens, and simulator organizations. We also differentiated between those involved only in the implementation and those directly responsible for the program from planning through execution. Our stakeholders evaluate Helping Hands according to 4 indices. And as shown in this diagram, and according to the commission of the study, scores were good all around. We achieved a good balance among them. And if you look a bit closer, outcome and dissemination and engagement and collaboration were particularly relatively well attained. These two we'll be using as a baseline and guide from going forward. This slide provides a top-line overview of what Helping Hands and Sanofi Pasteur Korea did and what we're able to accomplish. For the company, the program has become a model of the company's commitment to being a public healthcare partner in action and of a contribution to making the local community a healthier place to live. To wrap things up, I'd like to share with you 2 other developments that occurred between the times that we started Helping Hands and now. However, as much as we would like to, we cannot claim that these can be directly attributed to our work, but would like to think so. Even if they were not, they represent major victories for society. The first involved the erosion of the CSR stigma attached to working with the homeless. As mentioned in the beginning, when we first started this in 2011, very few in any Korean companies had social contribution programs that benefited to the homeless. 2014, our fourth year of the program, represented something in a tipping point. 2 Korean conglomerates joined in the fight and publicly launched CSR programs designed to aid the homeless. This was a major victory for Korean society. The second involves real change, and by real change I mean legislative change. After Helping Hands' inception in 2011, in June 2012, the national government enacted the Support for Welfare and Self-Resilience of the Homeless Act to protect the human rights and promote the welfare of the homeless. This paved the way for welfare services for housing, catering, medical, employment, and emergency measures for the homeless. Also, in June 2012, the Seoul Metropolitan Government issued the Rights of Homeless Persons in Seoul. Consisting of 16 rights, including the homeless people, are equal citizens of our society and have the right to not be discriminated against. To the extent that legislation reflects the will of the people, both acts represent a major shift in the Korean collective conscience, a shift that is necessary for real progress to be done. In closing, I'd like to reiterate that Sanofi Pasteur Korea continues to be committed to extending access to the healthcare for the underserved as a public healthcare partner. And because no single company can nor should tackle a social issue on its own, Helping Hands will continue to operate as a platform seeking collective impact. And finally, I'd like to finish my presentation with a short video. Thank you for your attention.
지금이야 인권이 좀 많이 강화가 됐어도 그 당시엔 인권이라는 개념이 별로 없었어요. 이제 막 시작되긴 했는데 노숙인에 대한 인권? 아무도 생각하지 않죠. 왜냐하면 사회적 편견 때문에 인권이 저 사람들도 왜 인권이 있어라고 얘기할 정도였으니까.
흔히 말하는 사회 안전망에서 다 떨어진 거예요. 장애인 복지, 노인 복지, 주거 복지, 노동권 이런 데서 다 어디서도 이 사람들을 어떻게 못 하니까 쉽게 해서 속된 말로 맨 밑바닥까지 그냥 떨어진 거지 않습니까?
(2011년) 당시만 해도 독감으로 인한 사망자들이 좀 지금보다 좀 더 많이 있었고요. 그래서 시에서도 많이 좀 걱정이나 이런 좀 긴급한 상황이 많이 있었고, 그러한 상황에서 사전에 예방할 수 있는 차원이 뭘까?
1998년 IMF 이후에 서울시가 민간기업과 맺은 그 제1호 협약이 헬핑핸즈에 관한 협약이고요. 그 이후에 1914년도에 KT라든지 15년도 현대엔지니어링, 16년도 더본코리아 이런 많은 기업들이 지금 참여해 주시고 있거든요. 이 헬핑핸즈가 그 시초가 되는 프로그램이기 때문에 저희로서는 굉장히 소중한 사업이라고 생각합니다. 지금 그 집계 자료를 보면 지금 예방 백신 접종률 커버율인 100%에 가깝게 지금 그 백신 접종이 되고 있다고 보고요. 사업이 얼마나 그 효과가 있느냐는 당사자들의 반응을 보면 된다고 생각합니다. 저희 11월 달 되면 언제 백신 접종합니다 그러면 다들 자발적으로 와서 백신 접종하시거든요. 이게 다른 말은 필요 없이 이것이 사업의 효과라고 생각합니다. 본인들이 필요하지 않다라고 생각하면 접종받으러 오지 않겠죠.
노숙인들이나 쪽방촌에 계신 분들은 일단은 저희가 진료 지원을 해주면 솔직히 그냥 일회성 진료라고 생각을 많이 하거든요. 그리고 지금 인식은 좀 많이 달라진 게 예전에는 빵을 먹기 위해서 예방접종을 했었는데 지금은 자기 몸을 위해서 예방접종하는 게 좀 많이 달라졌고요.
At Sanofi Pasteur, we believe that access to healthcare solutions is a fundamental right of citizens, whatever their situation, standard of living, age, origins. As such, Helping Hands is our contribution in making this happen in the Korean society.